Hey guys, my name is Bando, this is Brexit Bando, and this is a review of the TT Combat paints. Now it's been a long time coming and I've had some problems with this where the audio file from my recordings have all become corrupted, which is rather annoying. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just playing the video I've taken, and I'm playing it at 2x speed because I don't know what I was saying here. So kind of ignore what's going on screen. I'll cover everything as I go. So TT Combat has done a range of 60 acrylic paints with 12 washes, and they have they've just funded a second wave on Kickstarter with another 108 paints, bringing it to a total of 180 paints, if my maths is awful. Yeah, about 180 paints. They're 17 milliliters in a pot, and they use a dropper bottle style bottle with a slightly different nozzle than any other manufacturer I've seen use. It's a lot finer, and so far I've had no clogging issues. So to test them, I decided I was going to paint some Howling Griffins and a Mantis Warrior. I picked up the starter paint set, which is a regular paint set that comes with about 20 paints. No, I'm wrong with that, it's 10 paints I think. And it's just a standard kind of selection of, you know, your generic kind of yellows, blacks, blues, greys, metallics and browns. And it costs about £20. Yeah, £22 from TT Combat themselves. You, of course, can get them from places like Element Games cheaper. However, Element Games seems to be having stock issues. It may just be that they've run out and they're just waiting for a big restock. But they do have them, so that's absolutely fine. So they're available on, you know, third-party retailers, which is always nice, you know. It's always nice to get them from a retailer that can give you them a little bit cheaper. They're an acrylic paint, so they're water-based. They thin with water, and you know, they act like any other paint on the market, basically. So the first thing I noticed from them was that they don't need shaking as much as some other paints do. So far, they've been really, really good at not needing an absolute arm workout like I need with, say, my coat d'arms paints or my scale 75 paints. My coat d'arms are the worst. They really need beating into submission. And I've tried painting in two different ways. I decided to use an airbrush with the Viscera Red paint, which was for the Howling Griffins, and that went over really nicely. It was a really strong, vibrant couple of coats. Really didn't have to work up anything like I would with some other paint, you know, manufacturers. And this one I'm using Jungle Shadow Green with a brush over a zenithal highlight, a light grey zenithal highlight, to do a nice base coat for a dark green. This needed a couple of coats, but I'm painting it thin. I like my paints thin because I like to build up layers. You know, I don't. If only time I really paint like thicker painting is when it's smaller parts that I just need the coverage quickly. So what's special about it? The paints have a slightly different top to any other dropper bottle style pot. They have a plastic ring on them, which can be broken, a seal, so you know that you're getting a brand new paint. This has been an issue I know for a couple of friends of mine who've bought Vallejo paints, and you know, they've basically picked up paints from a hobby store where people have been using them off the shelf without telling the owner, you know, on the painting desks, which is not on. So yeah, they've got you can see them on the paints above. They've got this white collar, which it falls off when you've opened the pot, or you can keep it on there. You just have to catch it when you take the lid off. The lid has like a pill style child safety lock, where you have to push the top down when you twist it to open it, otherwise it will just keep turning. What this also does is it stops you being able to overturn the lid, which is a common issue you see with Vallejo paints, where people over tighten them and the top of the pot lid just pops off. I know I covered over my brush there for some reason. I'm just telling you that I like to use ABC brushes, which is a really budget-friendly brush reseller. He sells packs of like 5 for about £6, and they're cheaper synthetic brushes that I really like. I can use them and abuse them, and it doesn't cost me the world. While I do have some expensive brushes, which were the Badger series, Broken Toad series, which were very, very nice, the Series 2 brushes, but I really destroyed them, and I can't justify buying another set if they're going to die. Oh, I don't know what's going on there. So yeah, so I airbrushed the red. I then went back and I carefully airbrushed some yellow. I didn't use masking tape. I just came at it from a direction, and then I went back and did it with a brush to tidy up. The yellow, like all yellows, did have a bit of a rough time covering, but it was one of the better yellows I've worked with. Some yellows, they get really streaky. This didn't get streaky, it just got a little patchy in places. If I'd airbrushed it, it would have been fine. So the yellow's really good. I really like the yellow. It's called Spotlight Yellow. It's up there on my list of yellows. It's definitely a solid contender. It's a bit of a more orangey yellow on the pot, but it dries as a very kind of pale yellow. They are pretty good representations of what the colour dries as. They're not, like some paints which dry completely differently to how they look wet. You can see here the Jungle Shadow Green, very dark when it's dried, would work really, really well for like Dark Angels or as a base for Salamanders if you're going to go up to another level of colour. I've nearly run out of the black, which I really like. It's a good solid black, covers really well, doesn't separate like the Scale 75 one does if you haven't shaken it correctly. Yeah, just a really nice one. So you can see here what I've done with the Mantis Warrior is I've given him another Zenithal coat of Succulent Green. That one I did through an airbrush. And then I took it up to the Ogre Bogey Green for some real spot highlights. And then I went over onto the yellows. I'm very happy with what I have with these models. I'm very happy with the result I've got. Let me just go all the way to the end of the video again. You can see here, I then oil washed them. What I'm going to do at the end of the video, I'll put a couple of pictures of them completely finished, and you guys can see the final things. These were painted basically 99% of the way with TT Combat paints. The only things I did that weren't TT Combat was I used a couple of the GW washes, because I didn't have any of the TT Combat washes, but I also tried to avoid using washes as much as possible. And I also used a Van Gogh oil colour, which is just a regular oil paint, for an overall oil wash filter, which is why they look so grimdark. The metallics are really solid. The metallics are nice and responsive. They're not, the one I've got isn't very bright, but it's a good baseline metal. The gold I'm really liking. I'm using the gold for my Emperor's Children at the moment. It covers really well. It's more of a pale yellowy gold than say Retributor Armour. But once it's had a couple of washes, and some weathering, it's going to look lovely. So, all in all, I'm very, very impressed with this paint range. The paints are a little bit more expensive at £2.60 or £2.75. So the washes are 260, the metallics are 275. I think the regular paints are 260 as well. So they are a little bit more expensive than, say, Vallejo paints or Army Painter or Scale 75. Yeah, 260 for a regular one. But with a discount from Element Games, you can get them a little cheaper, about £2.50 to £40-ish. They are pretty standard price-wise for, you know, what you're buying nowadays for paints. You don't waste as much as even if you use Vallejo paints, because the nozzles don't clog. I've been using these for nearly a month or two now, and I've had no clogging. I've never had to unjam a paint pot, which has been a huge bonus. So 17 mils, they're about the same size as a Vallejo paint, so you're getting, just double check that to make sure I'm not lying through my teeth. Yeah, 17 mil, exactly the same as a Vallejo pot. I'm very, very happy. I'm very happy with these paints, and I would honestly say that if you are a newer painter, if you are someone who is looking at getting into the hobby, who is a little bit older, someone who doesn't have to follow Games Workshop tutorials to the letter, if you can make your own mind up to pick a colour and don't have to go, oh, I desperately need this shade of purple to paint this because that's what they told me to use, I would recommend these over Games Workshop paints any day of the week. I would recommend these nowadays over Vallejo. The only thing I would give Vallejo over them is the size of the paint range. Vallejo's better for a lot of more muted and realistic colour schemes. You know, olive drabs, that sort of thing. But they are definitely expanding. The second wave has a lot more colours in it, a lot more intermediate tones, some more interesting metallics, some more glazes, some more technical paints. So just like GW, they've got the weird and wonderful, you know, slime and blood style paints. The colours generally are also a little bit more, you know, accurate with the names. You know, if they tell you it's mossy green, gondola green, forest cell green, they're not just some abstract copyrightable name that you have no idea what it is. You're going to know when you hear the name resplendent purple that it's probably going to be a nice bright purple. If you see halfling pastry brown, you know it's going to be probably a nice sort of warm brown colour. Sour yellow is probably going to be something close to a lemon. Cherry blossom pink is pretty self-explanatory. So yeah, the colours are nice. The colours are really balanced with each other. They go over each other really well. They work well with a brush. There's no separation that I've seen so far. They don't have that nasty kind of oily texture like Coat d'Arms paints have if they're not 100% perfectly mixed. They wash over nicely, they dry relatively quickly. They worked well when I mixed them with my fluid retarder, with my thinners, with my glaze mediums. All in all, an absolutely solid paint range. So I would give these guys out of 5. Actually, let's do it out of 10. I'd give them a solid 8 out of 10. Complaints. The pots can be a little hard to squeeze when they're getting low. You do have to give them a shake to make sure that the paint's at the bottom. It can almost feel like you're squeezing a pot within a pot to get the paint out. And stock levels, that's the other issue. It's been a little hard getting a hold of some of them. When I ordered them from TT Combat directly, there wasn't much communication, there wasn't much tracking or anything like that. It was a package arrived and that was it. That's always going to be a bit of a negative for me. But all in all, I'm very, very, very happy with these, and I can recommend them to anyone. If you're a new painter, these are brilliant. If you are looking at getting them, the standalone paint set, which basically has all the colours you can see in front of you. Not all of them, but that's kind of the selection you're getting. Is £20-ish. It's well worth a punt just to try that. Get the basic paint set, give them a go, try them out on some random models, and see if you like them. Now, the colour scheme they have, sorry, the colour range they have is still kind of more focused towards more fantasy colour schemes, bright colours, lots of reds, lots of blues, lots of greens. So if you are a more realistic, grimdark, historical painter, you're not going to find, field grey, you're not going to find an olive drab perfect, you're not going to find a khaki perfect colour in there. So that's going to be your Vallejo range you'll want to stick with. But from what they've got in here so far, I'm really happy. And I know I keep saying that, but I wish I'd found some problems with them. I'd say the biggest problem I have with them is that now I have to buy another whole range of paints. Maybe if they did them in some more paint sets, it would be nice. If I could pick up for £20, I could get the whole range of the reds or the blues or the greens. That'd be really nice. All in all, I would. I like paint sets. Paint sets are good. I don't like ordering individual paints. I know it's convenient and it is good when you need a specific paint, but I like paint sets because they let you try a good, wide selection of a range. So yeah, 8 out of 10, highly recommended. Nox Games Workshop, out of the running for paints. Seriously, Nox Vallejo is a threat to scale 75, and I'm looking forward to trying the new Army Painter Fanatic paints, because I think those paints are going to impress me as much as these have, if not more. So there you go, guys. That has been my not scale 75, my TT Combat paint range review. I've been using these as my primary paints for the last couple of months, and I'm very, very happy with them. Pick them up, give them a go. Don't forget, you can always grab them from Element Games and use the code JAM, JAM 737 at the checkout to get double rewards, which is really good, because then you can save up and get free paint sets from them if you get enough points. If you've got some points, try picking them up. They've got a load coming in the beginning of November, so payday's at the end of the month for most of us. Just grab the starter set and give them a go. Try them out. Don't stick with the paint range just because that's what you've always used. Always try and experiment with something new. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for everyone who joined the live stream last night. As always, my name is Bando. I really appreciate every one of you who watches, comments, and interacts with me. Thank you very much. This has been Brexit Bando. Have a nice weekend.